So we're going live now. Yeah. And I just want to really quickly share the link here. Live scene. Hello. Let me grab the link for what's going on. Hold it. There we go. Oh, no, I don't want to open it. It's fine anyway. Copy that. Let's go to Twitter really fast. And then we'll get started. I'm streaming, making Tetris in Unity. Stop by and ask questions. Chat or just hang out. So there's that, and then I have Discord up here. Stream is starting now. All right, so that's done. Hello, everybody. Think I can be heard. Let me know if the music is too loud. You guys probably can't even hear the music, can you? Oh, that's because I have it muted. Good lord. All right, is that too loud? I'm gonna set it kind of down. I'm gonna go even further down. It's kind of loud in my ears. Let me know if that's too loud. So today we're gonna be starting with making a Tetris-like using Unity. I have 2019.4, but I haven't for some reason downloaded 2019.4 yet. So this is actually 2019.3, but we're not going to be using any of those features. In fact, pretty much everything I'm going to do today you could do in as far back as Unity 5. So feel free to use an older version, or I'm pretty sure all of this is going to carry through for newer versions as well. All I've done so far is made some assets for Tetris. Let me show you what those assets look like. I was just kind of playing around earlier today, and I thought this looked kind of fun. And I have this other expression for them as well. And I thought I could maybe have that be like, if they land or if they get cleared, they could switch to that expression. It's kind of fun. And then that I made these assets, I started thinking about what I wanted to use them in. And so I had this concept for Tetris game, and I just quickly roughed it out. I did this earlier today. I have an idea of what the UI could look like, pieces, board, and I just kind of quickly made those, and I put them all into a little folder here that I have in my Unity project. So what I want to do is kind of get started and jump in. So by default right now, my Unity project is set so that my game resolution is set to be phone portrait, which is a custom resolution I created. You can do that by going to your game window, choosing the display, and then clicking this little plus button. And you can either create in aspect ratio, which is what these all are, or you can create one that's based on pixel size. So I went with 1080 by 1920 because a lot of phones have at least that kind of resolution. This isn't going to be necessarily for phones, but it is going to be something that has this resolution, or at least that's the reference. All right, so to get us started here, to make my life easier, I'm going to count 0, 0 as being position 0, 0 on the grid. So that means that I need to know where this 0, 0 position is so that I can properly place my board sprite. And I think I made it so that this little duder should be 104, is that right? 104 and then 1816. All right, so I need to know where this should be as far as in Unity units goes. And a lot of that is going to have to do with how I import my art. I'm going to open up my background folder here, grab my default background, and for my pixels per unit, I'm going to set this to be 80 because I think that's what I have my grid size as. 2048. I can leave bilinear since this isn't pixel art. I'm going to go with no compression though. Need to change anything else, so I'm just going to apply that, drag this into the world, and that looks okay. I want to make sure anyway that the exact center of this is the correct position. So to do that, change where on the sprite editor, I'm going to change where the pivot point is. The pivot point determines, like for example, right now it's at 5.5 something something. The pivot point determines where this point is, which determines where the sprite actually is. So I'm going to move my pivot point to be in the bottom left, right down there. So this is 0, 0. So like wherever this point is, that's where this sprite is going to be located. Which is going to move it on my screen here. This way, you know pretty much exactly where it's supposed to be. So I want the x coordinate to be at negative 1.25 and the y coordinate at negative 1.25. That's because of the coordinate I picked. I think that should be right. Maybe it's negative 1.33. Wait, let's go back. Yeah, 1.33. So negative 4/3. Better, and then this is negative 3/3. Huh. I'm checking to see if it's right by looking to see if these look like they're about in the center all over, because any not centerness is just going to become exacerbated as you go further and further away. Or farther, I guess, farther and farther away. But that looks fine. So I'm just going to relabel this as background. And I'm going to give it a Z position of 1. That way I'm not going to be messing with sorting layers and stuff. Alright, cool. So if my camera now needs to go... I'm just kind of eyeballing it right now, and then I'm going to fix it in just a moment. Put it at 5.510. And then I need to up the orthographic size to fit. Probably 10.5. Graphic size. It gives me a little bit of an edge here. So let's I want to keep it at 12. I just want to adjust this so that it looks right. Go to my game window. Okay. That's good enough for me, honestly. I'm not going to be needing my camera to be dynamic in any way. I'm not going to be zooming in or out or anything like that. Actually, it's not going to be okay for me. I'm going to adjust this just a little. Here. Oh, just a tiny bit. That's fine now. So let's save this. Cool, that looks good. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about the blocks and the groups. So I'm going to make a new script here. So let's make a new folder. Create folder script. And here I'm going to create a new script specifically for, I'm going to call it group. And let's open that up in Visual Studio, which I already had open. I don't know why it's opening another instance of it. Here I was going to be all proud of myself for already having Visual Studio open. Okay, so I'm just going to have that be there. So the different groups are going to be the different shapes. So Tetris has 7 groups. 2 sets of 2 of those are reflections of each other. So typically those 7 groups are called I, J, L, S, Z, T, and O. O being that 4x4. So they all have 4 pieces as part of the group, hence the name Tetris, T-E-T-R for tetra, tetra meaning 4. So let's create a new game object. Call this group. Yeah. And I'm gonna add some empty game objects to this as well. I'm gonna go for 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is gonna be block 2. 3. It's going to be block 4. So right now I'm just making my groups. I'm going to put this at a nice, neat integer value for the x and the y, and the z should be at 0. Let's go for 5, 10. And yep, that puts us right in the middle of one of the spots here, which is good. I haven't seen any questions yet, so I just want to make sure. Oh, holy cow. All kinds of questions. All right, somehow I missed those questions. All right, so Tishman? Sorry. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm not a high school student. I'm a high school teacher. Yeah, face reveal. I've had my face on a few of these. Will you be saving this to Patreon or YouTube? Last of Us 2 is here. Yeah, this is going to be saved to YouTube. Today's topic, Rathon, is making Tetris. Do you upload this as a video? This is going to be part of a video. Will there be a live recording after on your channel? Yes. Good volume, just fine. I can't hear it. That's good. Okay. Sorry, everybody. I mean, I have Unity tutorials here on YouTube. What do you mean by courses? Unk error. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. See if I can figure out. Okay, there we go. Now I'm seeing your questions and comments. That's better. Okay. So this is just going to be like a blank group. Each of these blocks are going to need to have a sprite renderer on them. So with all of them selected, I'm going to add a sprite renderer. And the first group I'm going to make, let me actually duplicate this so that this can just kind of keep like, be the platonic ideal of a group. The first one I'm going to make is the I group. Move this one over a bit. And in here, I want to go to my resources and I want to grab my blocks. Benjamin, I will indeed be saving this so that you can come back. I'll have to cut out that beginning section, but yeah, I'll be saving it. Blocks and make all of these blue. Now, as far as the block itself goes, I need to, I also need to import these correctly. Should all be 80 pixels by 80 pixels. they're 128 by 128, but I'm gonna import them so that they're 1 unit, which is the same as 80 pixels on the grid. It makes it weird, but there we go. All right, so now off a little bit. It's gonna bug the heck out of me. I'll probably have to remake that background, but let me do these first. So, and we need to know where the center is. So all of the other blocks are going to be in reference to where the center is. So here, this empty game object that's the parent is at the position 310. So I want to move each of these so that I have the center be either one of the 2 middle ones. So I'm just gonna grab the blocks here. There we go. So now the center is this block right here. And there's the I group. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna make another copy of the regular group, and let's make the T group. And here, there. Now for the T group, I'm gonna grab all 4 of these. Let's make the T's yellow. Nice and colorful. The T has a pretty easy to figure center. So I'm just gonna, so the center is here, and then I'll have mirror, mirror. You guys understood that? You are better. So now we've got the T group. And let's make O next. So we'll duplicate our group here. And for O, let's make all of these. And for O, I'm going to have the center be the upper left block. So that means I'm going to grab so that the center is the upper left. And I'm getting them to snap to the grid by using Control while I drag and use the Move tool. Let's name this the O group. So there's 3. So now there's J and L and S and Z. So group, duplicate that again. Let's make this one the J group. This there. And let's make J and L, make them both red. So for J here, this is going to be the center, this block right here, and then so I'm going to grab these other blocks, go left and up, and I'm going to, okay, cool. Hello Pablo, how are you? Thanks very much for joining us here today. Oh, you know what it is? The fact that I had to use 4/3 for the grid. That's why it's a little bit off. Okay, so for J, I'm actually going to just, instead of duplicating the other group, I'm just going to duplicate the J group. I call this one L. And then I'm just going to move the 2 that are on top. Actually, I need to move more because if it's the L, the center should be right there. So this one over here. Move. Yeah, no, that's fine. Whole thing's done. So L goes up so I can keep the distinction between the 2. Right, so now it's S and Z, and I guess those are going to be purple. So I'm going to copy or duplicate the original group. S first. And for the blocks, I'm going to set them to be purple. Then for the S, I think I want the center to be, the center has to be either the top part or the bottom part. I'm going to have it be the bottom part. Grab. Here. Yeah. And then for Z, I'm again just going to duplicate S. Call this the Z. Here. Go over there. Gonna go over here. So these are all the different pieces you can make with just 4 blocks, which is why they're called Tetris. T-E-T-R meaning 4, like I said earlier. And I'm going to save these into a prefabs folder, which I'm keeping in my resources folder. And prefabs, and I'm just going to grab all of them, even the OG group, and I'm just going to, oh, I forget that you can't do that in Unity. So I have to do this individually. Hey, settle down. Okay, cool. Now, I can delete all of these from the scene. They don't need to be there. I'm going to make a constructor object. Place that where the new pieces are going to be created. We'll call this constructor. Put it right here. That's where new pieces will be created when they're created. All right, now let's make gonna be a game manager object. Help spell correctly. This is gonna go to 0, 0, 0. Constructor is gonna be a child of that. So as a child of the game manager, I'm going to have something that's just going to represent the grid. I think that's all the objects that we need for right now. Let's start with some of the scripts. So I already have a script for group. I'm going to make another one that's going to be a static class. And I haven't done too many of these on my channel before. A static class exists to not be put on any object, but to be able to be called from anywhere. I just want to make sure I'm not missing messages again. Okay, cool. Back to Unity. There we go. And okay, I'm gonna need to this clicked away while I was thinking about naming it. So I'm gonna create a new C# script, and I'm gonna call this vector round. Now, Unity is always in 3D, even if it's in 2D like it is right now. Even if you're using a 2D renderer and a pixel perfect camera, Unity's still in 3D. And what that means for games like this is you will have sometimes some floating point errors, which is actually why this grid is a little bit off right now. Those floating point errors serve to make it so that if something is supposed to be at an exact integer value coordinates, it won't be at those exact integer value coordinates. But I need them to be that way in order for Tetris to work, or at least to look the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to have a function here that is going to serve to return a rounded vector. And because I want this to be called from anywhere, that means that this is going to need to be a static, and this isn't going to be a class, it's going to be a vector2. It's always going to return a vector2. And Unity is going to kind of freak out about that because it doesn't know how to give a mono behavior to a static class, and it doesn't know how to return values from a static class. Not inheriting from anything. Vectors such as fields or methods. Okay. Thought I could do that though. Yeah, fix the formatting. Okay, well, whatever. I'm not using Unity Engine anymore, and just call this like. I am using Unity Engine. Vector2 isn't a generic C# type. Namespace cannot directly contain members such as fields or methods. Oh, I can't have it be a public static round vector. Need to be a class? Yeah, it needs to be a class. All right. I am sorry, I do not speak Spanish. The cater. Apologies. You don't have to retract the message. I could have looked it up later. Okay, so what I want to do here. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes really quickly. I actually wrote notes this time, which is amazing for me. If any of you know me at all. Okay. Oh, you're fine, Nicator. I'll save this. I do not speak Arabic. I speak English, and at one point in my life I was fluent in German, but that point is far, far long ago. Okay, so this is going to be public static vector2, and we'll call this rounded vector. And this is going to require let's call this vector2 input. Then we'll return new vector2, and then we're going to round those values that got sent in. So we're going to round integer value input.x, integer value input.y. I think I actually have to do mathf.round though, because integer value I think returns the floor. So I'm just going to do mathf.round anyway, instead of casting it as an integer, so that I'm not just getting the floor value. Okay, cool. Guten Tag. Ja, guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Wie geht's? Es geht gut. All right, back to this. So what I want to do next is, for my game manager here, I want to create a new script for this. The C# script. I call this game manager. Oh, I forgot Unity does that if you make a game manager script for some reason. Make another script for grid. Right, so let's open these two. I know this is currently, Renjin says, I know this is currently a Unity stream. I only have one question about Godot. I was wondering if you use C# with Godot, would you prefer that? So I haven't used C# with Godot yet. I know the C# support is way better now than it was back in 3.0.6. But that was the last time I messed with it, and it was a bit, I don't know, crunchy, if that makes any sense. I'm sure it's better now. From what I've seen, it's incredibly performant if you're using C#. It's almost as good as if you're using native C++. But no, I don't know. I like GDScript. I liked programming in that over C#. I have a tendency to do a lot more stuff in Python-like languages. I know it's GDScript isn't Python, but it's close enough that I just kind of, I don't know, I flow better with it. All right, so for our game manager here, let's make an array of objects. Make it a serialized field so we can change it in the inspector, but it doesn't have to be public. We'll call this object array, and we'll just call this like pieces. And then just to check that this is working very quickly, let's make a function. Construct piece. And for this, we're going to need to have serialized field transform, and we'll call this constructor position. All right, now when we construct a piece, Runjin says, okay, sorry. Un Porumbel says, hi, you're still working on the 2D RPG game. Yes, currently I'm looking at restarting it though, because there's a lot of bad programming habits I had when I made that starting 2 years ago that I have since kind of worked away from. So I'm currently looking at that. Runjin says, cool, thank you for the answer. I'm using both at the moment. And I get what you say about C# Godot. Still a way to go. It says I have an excellent connection. I don't know, that's the first time that's happened to me during a live stream. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, so back here, before I construct a piece, I'm going to make a little helper function. Let's make sure, yep, this is all still going. Yep, looks like I'm still there. Okay, cool. What am I doing? Oh yeah, so I'm going to make a quick little helper function. I'm glad that your live started again. This quick little helper function is going to get a random object from an array of objects. So this is going to be void get random object, and this is going to need to have an array of objects to get from. So game object array, we'll call this possible objects, and then I want to call this temp index is equal to random.range between 0 and get random object. I forget, or not get random object, possible objects dot. All right, now I forget, does random.range always, no, it returns an integer. Okay, good. And then we'll just change this from void to game object and return that game object. Possible objects, temp index. And we'll add in a little check here to make sure that we don't have a null reference exception. We'll do if possible objects dot length 0. So if there's nothing that we can return, then we'll return null. Void is function in Unity. Yes. So void means that you're not returning anything. So the whatever calls this function doesn't expect something coming back to it. Void means empty, meaning it's not expecting to get something back. If you make it a game object, then it's expecting a game object back. Oh, my room? Thank you. This is my office downstairs, and I'm actually surprised my cat hasn't come to bug me. She usually does that when she hears me speaking. So when we construct a piece, we're going to get a random game object. So let's make, or not integer, game object temp is equal to get random object. And we want to pass in our pieces here as the array that it needs. And then we want to instantiate that temp at the constructor position. Constructor pos dot position, and we're going to use quaternion dot identity. That's not how you spell quaternion. Okay, and just to test this out, I'm going to call construct piece at the beginning of the start method. Nestor says, hi Mr. Taft, so you remember the Zelda Unity game you did? I'm still struggling on stopping the character from staggering after I smack it. So if you jump ahead in the series, I revisit whatever that's called, knockback, so that it is way simpler. See, which video was that? Playlists. Abilities. Here we go. There's 94 videos in this.
Need a
Good
professional
Lord.
logo for your brand?
Stop. Stop. So it's way down that I came back to it. I think it might have been after the inventory. Inventory refactoring, health and damage, knockback. So jump ahead a bit to the refactoring knockback. I do it a different way here, and I would do it this way now, using a tween node so that it's not so dependent on the logic working correctly with the coroutine, which can be a bit fiddly sometimes. So jump ahead to that one, wherever that is. 81, good Lord. Okay, so save my script here. I'm gonna pop back into Unity. I had that problem though, but I remade it again because I actually raged and it worked. Oh, okay, good for you. All right, so my game manager is gonna get the game manager script. There's 7 of them. The constructor position is the constructor. Courses, prefabs. Drag these in here. I know I can drag them in as like a group, but I'm gonna do them because I'm already almost done. There. Okay, so I should see one of those pop up. Cool. If I do it again, hopefully it's gonna be different. Alex, thank you very much. I appreciate that, man. I'm just checking to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. All right, that I group probably should have its center down here so that it's not generating so far down. The I group, and bottom one here is going to be moved to the top. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Right now I'm just checking to make sure things look like they're supposed to. See, that was S, Z. I don't think I've seen T or O yet. Yeah, O needs to have it at the bottom. T has it at the bottom, JLI. Yeah, so let's open up the O down here, up. All right, cool. So we're generating a random piece, consulting my notes here. Got that as part of my... So now I want to actually create the grid. So let's go back into Visual Studio here. Oh, I haven't opened my grid script yet. Open up the grid script and let's pass in a few variables. First, I want to know the width and the height, and typically Tetris is played on a board that is 10 wide and 20 tall. So make this a serialized field so I can change it in the inspector, but it's private. Private int width, and we'll do the same thing for the height. Private int height. Let's default both of these to the values that they typically are. Let's make a serialized field, private. I want to make this, call it groups. So it's an array of groups. Call this grid equals new group. Need to give it arguments here, width and height. Can I not do that? Okay, so it has to be static. So instead I'm just going to set that alone there. See, this is what happens when you work with a bunch of different programming languages. And I'm just going to initialize it in start. Grid equals new group width height, because then it's going to be referenced and I won't have to worry about it being non-static. Good question. Man, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry. Unporumbel. So Unporumbel asks what this here means. So it means that I'm making an array, but instead of it being a one-dimensional array, which you can imagine like a line, I'm making it a two-dimensional array. So I have an array for the rows, and then I have another array for the next row. And since my width is going to be 10, it's going to be, the array that I'm creating is a two-dimensional array. It's going to be 10 objects wide, and because my height is 20, it's going to be 20 objects tall. You can think of it just like an XY coordinate system, and you can reference things on that. So like I could make a new game object, or not game object, a group. Just call it example. And this would be equal to grid, I don't know, like 2, 3. And then that would find the object that's in the 2, 3 position and set it into that example. Now, you have to remember, of course, that arrays are 0 indexed. So, yeah, Benjamin, it's incredibly similar to that. It's C#'s way of doing it, though. Python, when you make arrays in Python, you have to make it like an array and then another array. So it's like you're referencing two separate arrays, but in C# they're together. You have to remember, though, that these are 0 indexed, which means that the 2 column is actually the third column over because it's 0, 1, 2, and the 3 row is the 4th row up, 0, 1, 2, 3, if that makes any sense. So what this is doing here is just creating a data structure that I can store information into. And then that way, if I want to check to see if a row is full, I can just check that height position. So I can say, like, go through all of the columns at height 0, and if they're all full, then I can destroy them and move stuff down, which is how Tetris works. All right, so what do I want to do next? Oh, right. So when I'm creating my game manager here, I created that vector round, but I haven't actually used it yet. And when I'm creating a new piece, what I want to do is round every position I put them at to make sure there's never going to be a floating point error so that they're not somewhere weird. I can call you Pigeon? Is that what you're telling me? Okay. So I'm going to create a vector 2 and I'm going to call it temp position. And this is going to be equal to, call it rounded vector? Yeah, rounded vector. Round vector dot rounded vector, and I want to pass in constructor pos dot position, and that way it's going to always be returning a integer value for x and y, and then now I can just instantiate it at temp pos, and this shouldn't cause any issues. That rounded vector, since it's a static class, it can't be attached to any objects in the scene. It just kind of hangs out in the program, and Unity knows where to look for it. Nothing should be different. All right, cool. Now, back to my grid here. So there's a bunch of different helper functions I can make before I actually make anything work. Let's see. Let's make something that returns a Boolean value, so true or false. We'll call this is row full. This is going to need to know a row, so we'll do integer row, which I think I can use, right? Yep. And by default, let's return false. So we're going to say that the row isn't full. Pigeon says, wait, I wasn't on the live. Can you tell me what you did with the temp position? Yeah. So back in the game manager here, because Unity is always in 3D, that means that you can have, even if you're using it in 2D, even if you're using a 2D renderer and a pixel perfect camera, Unity's always in 3D. So what that does is it makes it so that you can sometimes have what are called floating point errors. So like if I jump over to Unity here, if I look at my background, this, if I set this to be -4/3, it doesn't actually go to -4/3. It goes to -4/3 to however many decimal values or significant figures Unity will actually figure. But in Tetris, in order to make things work, everything needs to be at exact integer values. So in order to do that, I made at the beginning this vector round function. This doesn't go on anything, doesn't need these. It just sits in the background, and all it does is tell objects that ask it what a rounded version of their vector is. So rather than using the constructor position, which even if I set it to be integer values in the inspector, something could happen, and because Unity is always in 3D, it could have floating point values. And I don't want that. So I made a temporary vector here, which is the rounded vector of the constructor position, and then I'm using that to instantiate the pieces. It just makes, it's an extra check to make sure that my pieces are always going to be at exact integer coordinates. And I'm going to be using this when I move the pieces too. All right, so back in the grid script here, I'm going to make some helper functions. I need to know if a row is full. So I want to make a for loop. So since I'm going for the rows, I'm going to do integer value I starting at 0. I'm going to go until I is less than width. Increase each time. I want to check to see if the grid has something in that position. So if grid, and since I'm using a specific row, it's going to be I comma row, not equal to null. I actually don't even need to have that check here. I can just do if grid I row, meaning if there is something there. Then I can return true. But I need this to happen for everything, so I can't just return here. So let's instead check to see if this is empty, just reverse them. So if I get something that isn't full, then that means the whole row can't be full. And if I go through the entire row and it doesn't trip to be full, then I'm going to return true. So that means the row is full. Right, so make a function that's going to check all rows. So we'll do, I'm going to make this a void. Actually, what do I have it in my note? I should check my notes. This is why I make notes. I'm going to need to make an inside border helper. I always forget to do that one. A delete row helper. Crease row. Crease rows above is row full. Full rows. Oh, okay. So that's what I wanted to do. So let's actually make a few other helpers here. Pigeon says, are you using colliders for the blocks or part of the script to stop them from... No, Pigeon, I'm going to do this all in code. I'm not going to use any colliders or the physics system at all. So we're going to do void, all this delete row. This needs to know which row it's deleting. I'm going to go for I equals 0, I is less than width, I plus plus. And then we'll just destroy the pieces there. This could be changed for like instantiating effects or animations or stuff, making it look better. For now, we're just going to destroy it. So we're going to destroy grid row by game object. All right, so that's delete row. And now I want to make one that deletes all of the full rows. Void full rows. So I want to go through each row, and if the row is full, I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to go through each row here. So instead of going through the columns like I was before, I'm going to go from 0 to the height. So for I is 0, I is less than the height this time. So starting at the 0 at the row and moving up. If is row full, and I'm going to pass in my I here, then I'm going to delete row I. So all of this could have been put into one function, but by separating the logic into separate functions like this, it makes a lot more sense. So like, first I want to know if a row is full. I want to be able to delete the row. I want to use this to delete all of the full rows, and that uses the other two. I could have done this all in one thing, but that would have had a bunch of for loops in one function, and it would have been really easy to make mistakes. If you encapsulate your logic like this, you're going to be much more likely to not make simple errors. All right, so now I'm going to make another helper function here. And I'm going to make two of them. I'm going to make one for decreasing rows. Void decrease row. And I'm going to make another one for decreasing all the rows above a specific row. So void decrease rows above. And then this is going to require an integer value. Decrease row is going to need to have an integer value as well. Call this row. Call this row. All right, so for my decrease row function here, I want to iterate over the width. So decrease row. So I want to go for okay, making sure I'm not missing any questions here. Make absolutely sure. Jump back over to the actual. Oh wow, okay. So looks like I can't connect to chat through here. So if you guys are asking a question, I apologize if I'm not answering it. Looks like the last question was asked by Pigeon. about 5 minutes ago. So if anybody else has a question, please let me know. Anyway, back to what I was doing. So I want to go for int I is equal to 0. See the width? You can use an animator. For now, I'm just going to have them disappear. But here is where you would do that. So if you wanted to have something special happen, you could do, since I'm referencing the controller object on each group, I could do grid I comma row, which references the controller dot, I don't know, special effect, like whatever I would call the class. And then that would trigger a function inside the grid or the group that would go through all of its own things and like trigger a particle effect or trigger an animator effect and then later destroy it. If that makes sense. For now though, just to make the functions or the system up and running, I'm just going to destroy them. And then this is a place where I can come back and flesh it out later to make it look better. Mr. Fahrenheit says, hello. I missed the beginning of the video. What are you doing right now for the coding part of the project? Right now I'm making some helper functions for the logic of Tetris. So right now we have a game manager that will create a random piece from an array of pieces. And I'm looking at making it so that I have the logic in place to check to see if a row is full. If it is full, delete it. And if a row is deleted, decrease the rows above it, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm back in decrease row here, and I want to check to say if grid go I comma row, which will check to see if it's not null. Then I want to row xi row minus 1, so one row beneath it is equal to grid I row. So I'm essentially taking this and moving it there. And then I want to set where it was empty. Grid equals null. And then I want to actually move the piece down. So grid I row minus 1. I'm going to break these out to explain. This is probably the most complicated part I've done so far. Dot game object dot form dot position plus equals vector 2 dot down. All right. Oh, then this needs to be vector 3 dot down. Now, this should be okay, but let me actually go through the steps here. Pigeon says, can you make a 2D, 3D shooter tutorial soon? I'm really searching for a tutorial to help me, but I can't find very good ones. What exactly are you looking for? I have the beginnings of a 2D shooter tutorial on my channel now. I was gonna say, put the piece here into the space below. Space empty. Object. All right, so that's decrease row. Now I want to decrease all of the rows. So I'm going to make another, oh no, I already have a function for decrease all rows, or decrease rows above. All right, so for decrease rows above, I want to go for integer I equals 0, I is less than the height this time, because again, we're decreasing the rows above something, so we're going to be using the height. Increase the index, and then we're going to decrease row I. So if we know that a spot has just been destroyed, Then I'm going to go through all the rows above and decrease them. So I'm going to call this after we delete all the full rows, and then decrease rows above I. Full row function. Okay, hey guys, sorry, I didn't do anything extra. Are we back up now? I honestly don't know what happened. Everybody there? We good now? Okay, cool, we are back. All right, so I don't think I did anything. This is within board function here. I want it to return false by default so that I can get rid of that red line under here, because all code paths have to return a value since this isn't a void. So what I want to do is check to see if it's within the X position. So if board position.x is greater than or equal to 0, meaning if it's okay for the left side, my left, so I guess that's your left, and board position.x is less than the width, then I want to check the Y positions. Oh, good lord, I'm using C#. And there we go. Now I want to check to see if it's within the Y positions. Within the Y positions. So now if board position.y is greater than or equal to 0. Which one is it? There we go. And board position.y is less than the height. Return true. All right, so this functions to tell us if a position is within the board. And we're gonna have to check this on not each group, but each of the children in the group. We got our decrease row, which is gonna decrease a single row. Decrease rows above, which will decrease all the rows above a specific point. Delete full rows, which will delete a full row, or delete all of the full rows. Delete row, which deletes a single row, and then is row full, which checks to see if a row is full. So these are the helper functions that we have right now. All right, so next I'm going to do some work on the actual groups themselves. So what I want to do, let me check my notes here. Oh, there's one more thing I need to do here. So when I deleted the rows and then I'm decreasing the rows above, I actually don't want to decrease rows above I want to decrease rows above I plus 1. This is in the delete full rows function. And then I also want to decrease the I value, which makes it 1 less than what it was. See Playmaker tutorial for this. Can you make one in Unity? I'd like to see something like the RPG game, but in a shooter style. I kind of know what you mean. I'd have to think about that. All right, so here. So now I want to do some work in the group script. Sorry, just checking my notes. I know this isn't the most interesting thing in the world. All right, so what I'm gonna do here, my group script, is I want to make a reference to the grid. So this is gonna need to be public. Actually, it doesn't need to be public. It can be And it doesn't need to be changed in the inspector. I'm just going to call this private grid, and then, I don't know, just grid. I'm going to have a setup method here, and these are set up. So what I'm going to do for the setup method is tell it what its grid is. New grid to keep them separate. And we'll say grid equals new grid. Now, there's a few other functions I want to make in the group class. I want to be able to move up or down and left or right, which means I need to know which of the groups are currently active. So I'm going to make another variable here. We'll call this private bool is active. A left and right here. So void move. Not on animator move, I just want to call it move. And this is going to take in a vector2 that's a direction. And it's going to move the piece in that position. So we're going to say, we're going to make this simple for now. So we're going to say transform.position plus equals move direction. And then, oh yeah. Let's just make this, let's leave it move direction like that because I don't want to make it vector3 every time. So instead I'm going to do new vector3 move direction dot x direction dot y 0. That way I don't have to keep doing that. And then I want to make sure that the position is at that rounded vector. So I'm going to make a temporary vector. To temp vector equals new vector2, and this is going to be the rounded version of the so I don't actually need to do the new vector2. I can just do vector dot rounded vector new vector2 form.position.x. Okay, I'm moving a little fast here. Hello Richard, how are you? So if you guys have some questions, let me know. And sorry about it must be my internet. It's either my internet or it's everybody's internet. So sorry about my internet today. And then once I get that temporary vector, I want to set the position to be that temporary vector so that way it's always going to have integer coordinates. So I'm going to say transform.position equals new vector3 and vector.x to vector.y. It's been a while, Richard. How are you doing? This way I can move in any direction. I'm going to use just input keys here instead of actually setting up the input system. So I'm just going to say if input.is, yeah, it's get key down. And key code dot to left. Oh, it's left arrow now? Okay. I swear it didn't used to be left arrow. Then we're going to move vector2 dot left. And I just want to check this really quickly to make sure this is going to work the way I want it to. So on all of my groups here, which are in my prefabs, grab them all. I'm even going to grab that platonic ideal of a group. I'm going to add the group script to it. All right. So yeah, I'm going to be doing live streams every Friday during the summer. So that was good. So let's put in commands for right and down. So let's copy these. So we're gonna do right arrow. Let's do down arrow. And so right arrow should be vector2 dot right. Down arrow should be vector2 dot down. Now these are going to allow it to move outside of the group or outside of the grid. We'll fix in just a second. Okay, cool. That looks pretty close to what I want. Now, what I want to do is add a quick little check here, and this is going to be a Boolean value, and we'll say can move actually. Let's do it this way. So we'll always move in the direction that we want to move. Then we'll check all of the children and see if all of the children are in the right spots. And if they're not, then we'll move in the opposite. That way the user will never know because it'll all happen in one frame. So let's say void, or not void, bool. We'll call this is valid position. And this isn't going to need any arguments. We are, however, for each of these going to need to know what their children are. And we could do that by just accessing the transforms children, but I think it's going to be easier if we just make it an array of game objects. So make this a serialized field so we can set it in the inspector. We'll call this a private object array. And we'll call this blocks. All right, so now I'm gonna go to each of these individually and set their blocks. No, stay there. All four of you. There we go. J, lock the inspector. All four of you. L. Vector. Go to O. Open it this time. Lock the inspector. All four of you. S. Oop, forgot to lock the inspector that time. Go to Z. So what I want to do is I already made a function here in the grid to check to see if a position is valid. I 100% could make a children, or make it, I wouldn't even need to make a script. I could make just a function. I didn't think about that, Pigeon. You're right. Sometimes my way of doing things is not the best way of doing things. So I appreciate you. Yes, I could have just made a function that gets called on start and finds all the transforms. And all of the transform children put into an array. I could have done that. Okay. So for I equal to 0, I is less than blocks.length I plus plus. I'm going to need to grab the grid now. Yeah, so I'm going to say if grid dot, what did I call it? Is valid. Oh, I probably didn't make it public. Is within board. Public. If grid dot is within board. And now I need to give it a vector 2. And this is going to be blocks I, game object, transform dot. Okay, no, let's just make this simpler. Let's just make this so much simpler. Let's cache that value so I don't have to do all that stupid. Vector to temp. Vector equals blocks I dot game object. I don't need to do game objects since they are game objects. Transform position dot x, and I need to make this a new vector too. This is what you guys get when you sign up to watch a live stream. You get to see even more errors. Semicolon, of course. So if is within board temp vector. So I want to go through, make sure, let's just make this if not is within, turn false. And we'll check that after we move. So if not is valid position, then we're going to move back. So move vector 2 dot right. And for this to work, I need to make the height actually be a little bit higher to accommodate that I piece. But so I should be able to go back now, and it should stop. Oh no, wait. So the problem right now is this T group here. If I switch into debug mode, it doesn't know what the grid is because I forgot to call that when I instantiate it. And I even instantiated it as a group, I think. Game manager. No, I didn't. So after I instantiate it, I want to do so we're gonna do group temp group is equal to instantiate all of that dot get component. Yeah, that's the right way to do that. And then say temp group dot setup. We want to give it the grid, which means this needs to know what the grid is as well. Private grid. Okay. And that means that setup in group needs to be public. All right, so cool. So now there's a few things I need to set up here. Back in Unity, I need to make the game manager know what the grid is. Grid not have a grid script? Did I forget to do that? Why is this still in debug? Oh, good Lord. I forget that they did that. There we go. I want my grid, not the Unity grid. The game manager needs to have that grid. Oh, not say that. I just wanted to say stuff first. Pigeon says, if you are not hurrying, can you make it when you can? I tried that a few times and it wasn't actually good. Yeah, sure. Pigeon, I'll go back and fix that in just one moment, as soon as I'm done with what I'm doing here. So I want to make sure that the grid is being assigned like it should be. Go back into debug. Cool, it's assigned. Now, oh, because of the top, that's why. So for my grid, I need to make my height, like say 24, to accommodate the tall pieces. because they go a little bit outside of the grid. Okay, so let's try this again. If I hit left, it should stop me at the left border. Go. All right, I'm gonna fix these. I'm gonna do that for the rest of my movement. And then I'll go from there. So I'm gonna set is active to be true by default. And then in my update, I'm gonna check to see if is active is false. So if not active, and then I'll just return. All right, so Pigeon asked how I could automate filling up that that grid. So the way I'm going to do it here is I'm going to make a function. I'm going to call this fill blocks, and then I'm going to go let's do for child in, no, hey, for each, I mean, child, child form dot no, let's do it the other way. Just use a for loop. So we'll do for int I equals 0, I is less than dot get child count. Get child count apparently isn't a function. Is it? It's just transform.child count. Okay. Sweet. Am I adding them as game objects? Yep. So I'll do blocks I equal to transform.get child I. Dot game object, because I need the object. And what I want to do first is just clear the array. So we'll do what is it? This is what I get for trying to do too much in too many different languages. Not clear. Erase. Is there not a way to? Oh no, because I can't change. So I can't resize arrays. It's not a list. So I'm just gonna save this. I'm gonna add a print statement just so I know it's happening, or not a print statement, a debug statement just so I know it's happening. So change child. But if it works, it should just work like it's supposed to. Okay, there we go. If I go back into Unity here, I should be able to tell it's worked. So change child and got all the groups. All right. Now I want to change the movement too in the other directions. So grab this. I'm going to use this as my template for right and down. So right arrow, we're going to move right. And if it's not an okay location, we're going to move back left. Down arrow, we're going to move down. If it's not an okay location, we're going to move back up. All right, so let's test this in the 3 directions we have. So left and right are good. Down is good. Now we need to land the pieces and stuff too, because I can still move this, and that's where that is active is going to come in. We have a land function here to tell the piece to store itself inside the grid. We're then going to need to tell it it's not active, so that every piece isn't moving when we press the arrow keys. All right, so back here, moving, what next? Let's make a timer function to move the pieces down. And let's also, in the game manager, store a reference to the piece that we're currently using. So I'll make a private group, current group. It's null by default. And then when we create a new piece, current group equals temp group. We're also going to make a timer here. So serialize field, private float. We'll call this move time. And we'll make another one that is just a private float. Move time seconds. And then an update, we're going to decrease move time seconds by time.delta time. If move time seconds is less than or equal to 0f, then we're going to call current group dot move. Yeah, let's move. Vector 2 dot down. Move isn't public, that's why it's doing that. So public. Okay. Back here. Oh, one more thing I have to do for that timer to work like I want it to. Game manager, in the start method, I have to set move time seconds equal to move time. And then I also need to do that after we invoke what happens at the end of the timer. All right. So if I save this and back into Unity here, let's hit play. All right. By default, both of those are 0, which is why that was doing that. So my move time is going to be 1. There we go. Already this is looking a lot more like what we want. And it shouldn't move beyond the bottom. Oh, but it is. Oh, because, all right. So let's make another function here in the group script that's separate from move. I'm going to call this game manager move or something like that. I haven't had any questions in a while. Let's make sure I'm not missing any. Okay. Can't even tell if I have any questions there. I can see that stream is still live though, so that's good. All right. Okay, so back here, do public void game manager move, do direction, and then we'll move in move direction, but if valid position, if I'm in group, right? Oh, is valid position, okay. If not valid position, then I'm gonna move negative move direction. And this should be a semicolon as well. All right, and then this doesn't need to be public anymore. Back in the game manager, do game manager move. Save that back in Unity here. All right, so cool. All right. Now, we also, at this point, if we can't move down any further, so in the group here, I'm just going to add a comment. So if it's not a valid position, I'm going to tell the grid to land the piece. And I'm going to do the same here when we're moving down here. Okay. All right. Sorry, just reloaded my chat there. Okay. So now let me look at my notes. All right, so we're gonna make the land function now. And then we'll look at rotating. Sorry, just looking at my notes here. I know this is riveting. Okay, so in my grid script here, I'm going to make a public void land piece. And this is going to require a game object to land. Actually, we can just use a group, because since I already have the blocks stored. So I want to do for int I is 0, I is less than piece dot blocks dot length I plus plus, which means I need to make the the blocks should already be, no, they're serialized, that's why. Go back to my group, I need to make them public. It's probably gonna yell at me about the serialized field tag now. No, okay, good. Oh, it's capital L length, that's why. So then I want to store each of these in the grid. So now I'm going to make a, this is going to be public, this is just going to be a void store block in grid. And this is going to need to know what block, and my grid is groups. This shouldn't be groups then, this should be game objects. Is that going to break anything? Breaks this. Break anything else? Not that I know of. Alright. Now, store block in grid. So this needs to know which block it's going to store. So we're going to say game object block. Block in grid. And then this, oh yeah, it needs to know blocks I, and then this needs to communicate with the game manager. So make a reference to the game manager here. And then, oh, it needs to actually be stop blocks. Store blocking grid, game object block. I want to round the position, so we're going to say int position equals let's store the position of the block first. Here two, we'll call this like int position equals vector dot rounded vector from a new vector 2, which is the block dot transform dot position dot x. Help if I could spell position correctly. That way, now I can just do grid x int y is equal to so let's just cast these as integers then. Cool. Okay. Now, part of my movement then is within board. I need to have another two helper functions here. One is to tell if it's an empty spot. So this is going to become just a bool is spot to board position. So if grid position.x y to null, turn true, otherwise false, and these need to be cast as integers as well. Okay, and another helper function here to tell me if a spot is within an empty. So this one should be public. Is within and empty to board position. And then if is empty spot, board position, if then board, these should probably be reversed. I should be checking to see if it's within before I check to see if it's empty. Then I'm going to return true. Otherwise, return false. And now, instead of checking for is within board, I want to check to see if it's within board and empty. Back in the group, is within and empty is going to replace this. Grab that and copy it, because I think there's a bunch of other places I have to do that. Oh no, since I used is valid position, that's the only place I have to do it. Nice. Okay, so now in our grid, blocking grid, land piece. So we're going to land the piece then here. Do grid dot land piece. Do that with the down key as well. All right. Now, when the grid lands the piece, I want it to also tell the game manager to spawn a new piece. Do public. Save grid. After it lands the piece. Since I'm doing this to something that's above where the grid is in the hierarchy, I want to make sure I'm doing a null check first. So I want to check to see if the game manager was filled. So if game manager dot construct piece. So we don't have rotation yet. Rotation's coming soon. But for now, we have a bunch of the functionality. Okay, cool. I am still live. All right, so I'm going to save this. And the grid needs to know what the game manager is. I think that's the only change I need to make. Move the piece down. Oh, and now I need to have the piece know it's not active anymore. I even specifically said I needed to do that. Group. Say active is false, and we're going to do it up here as well. All right, back into Unity here. Line 33 in group. I forgot a semicolon. Save that. We don't have very many. I guess we have a couple hundred. Not a ton of lines of code though. Okay, so it's stopped there and stopped there. Go down. Cool. And let's make sure this will interlock like I want it to. Oh. All right, so it put the pink one there at the wrong position. But it knows that pink one is at the right position. That's weird. It's gonna know that the orange one is in the position it's supposed to be in. Okay, so some of my positions are off then. Whoa! That's crazy. Are there any positions wrong over here? Nope, they're all fine. That's weird. Oh, I wonder if it's because I was kind of spamming the down. Oh no, it's very slow right now. I'm doing it this way just to make sure that it's working like I would expect it to. So if I wanted to make it faster, all I have to do is go to the game manager and change my move time to something smaller, like say 0.5. The move time is set as a variable like that, so that every however many rows you can speed it up. Even make this. Alright, so the pieces aren't storing in the grid very well. I'm gonna have to do some debugging here. Let's make it super short, 0.1 seconds. So, some of them are storing correctly, but not all of them. Weird. Alright, let's find out what I did. Okay, so the group moves down. If it is not a valid position. Yep, thank you, Richard. So the grid moves down, and if it's not a valid position, it Tetris? Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. I know how to program Skyrim, but I actually don't know how I'd do Tetris. Maybe I should try it sometimes too. Working with 2D grids is incredibly useful. Okay, so we're moving down. And if we can't move down, then it moves back up. And then it tells the grid to land the piece. Makes this inactive. And we're doing the same thing. Grid.land piece, yep. Not active, it doesn't access the update loop. And then in the grid script, land piece. So it goes through all the blocks. And it stores the block in the grid. And then if the game manager exists, it tells it to construct a new piece. So this part's working. And this part is only kind of working. Wonder if I can get it to tell me what that in position is. I think it might be an issue with my end position. So let's debug that out. Let's bring this back down to 0.5. All right. I'm not gonna use the keys this time. I just wanna check this because I want to check the. Okay, so it didn't debug out that. Oh, did it? Oh no, it did. Pause for a second. Alright, so we got the changed child, 4 of those. And then before we got that, we got these positions for that last piece that we stored. This one here, it's telling me it's at 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, 4, and 5, 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 4. Huh. So it's storing it in the wrong position. Now, if I take a look here, these positions are 4, 14, 6, 4, 6. Oh, that's why. I want their global transformed opposition. It's telling me their relative transformed opposition. So back in here, I'm glad I did that. So the transform.global position I'm too reliant on IntelliSense. Transform dot. So I want the. No, it does give me the world space. Oh my gosh, that's why. I'm using the X position for both of them. That's why it was Mr. Taft. Wing Hong, I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly, asks how long have you been making games? About 5 years now. Maybe it's 6? 5 or 6. Alright, I think that's what the problem was. I was storing the X position as both X and Y. That's why it was working sometimes and not others. It was working when it was on the line Y equals X. So let's test this. And this should be able to sneak in underneath that one. Cool. This should be able to sneak under there. I still can't rotate, but that's okay. I want to delete and collapse next, and then I'll work on rotation. And I can fudge the scale in my favor for the delete and collapse. I can just have it be the O pieces. That way it'll be easy to check. But this seems like it's working better now. All right, cool. So whenever we land piece, game manager construct piece. Before we tell the game manager to construct a piece, what we want to do is check for all rows. So we want to delete full rows, and then we want to decrease rows. So delete full rows, decrease row. No, decrease row above should be, I should just have to do delete full rows. When I delete full rows, let's make sure. I want to actually also set that grid I row to be null. Well, I have to do that after I destroy it. Otherwise it won't know what to destroy. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to Unity here. My game manager. I'm going to get rid of all my groups, and I'm just going to play with the square ones just to test it out. It's going to go just all square. Tetris speedrun. Nothing but squares. I want to make sure that it stacks like it's supposed to. Okay, cool. Nice. All right, cool. So basic Tetris mechanics are working. With the exception of rotation. So let's go to the group and let's make these puppies rotate. Now this isn't the cleanest way. In fact, it would be good if I used the new Unity input system, but that can be a live stream for next Friday. I changed the move time to 0. I'll show you. I go to my game manager, set the move time to be 0. They move insanely fast, but so like what happens is it moves every frame. That's what happens. Okay. Go back to 0.5. If I go back into here, rotate. So if input dot get key down, code dot up arrow. And what I want to do is, yeah, going forward, I'm going to be streaming on Fridays from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, depending on how long my voice holds out. So let's do, just like I did a move, let's do a rotate. We'll not use a vector 2. Instead, we'll use an integer value. We'll call this rotate amount. All right, so when we're rotating, we want to take our, I always forget how to do this. Pulls. Spell that wrong. Quaternion dot Euler? Is it Euler? Yeah. Dot Euler 0f 0f. And then I want to do the opposite rotation. So okay, so I can't just do that. I'm 1 to 4 p.m. my time. Depends, like I said, depends on how long my voice holds out. At 4 o'clock, I gotta go buy some hedge trimmers so that I can trim my hedges. Okay, so transform dot rotation. So I can set it equal to. So let's do. Float temp float equals rotation.z, and then this is going to be, but is transform.rotation.z, is that a float value, or is that, or is it a degree value, or is it a integer value? Don't modify this directly unless you know quaternions inside and out. Right, but I just want to know returns. So can I just do okay, well, I'm just going to leave it like this for now. We're going to see if I break it or not. Oh, I need to actually implement it. So and instead of 90, this should be the rotate amount. That way I can have 2 rotations. So then here, 890F. All right. So float then, since I think I told it it had to be an integer. All right. Back into Unity here. Chose the wrong piece to use. All right, so game manager, O and the S, put them all back in. AI 7. I think it worked there. Okay, not really. Hold on, what's going on with these two down here? So... Yep, so that's what it is. It's returning a radian value. When I rotate, I want this to be 2 degree, which just multiplies it by 180 over pi. Oh, I have to multiply it. Okay. mathf.rad 2 degree. All right, back here. That's interesting. Be like the worst Tetris game ever. Okay. Rad to degree pigeon is the transformation factor to turn a radian value into a degree value. Quaternions store their values as radians, and to change a radian into a degree, you multiply by 180 over pi, which is what mathf.rad to degree is. Okay. So can I just do... transform.Euler angles. Okay, so I can do transform.Euler angles. So I'll go 0, F, 0, F. Do float plus rotate amount. How do I use transform.Euler angles? So Mr. Fahrenheit says, I came here to me. Oops. That means rotation.angles, angles.x plus equals transform.rotation equals quaternion.Euler. Okay, so that makes sense then. So I'm just gonna copy this bit of code here. I can't be bothered to remember 3 lines. So transform.rotation.Euler angles, and then we're gonna do angles.z plus equals rotate amount. And then transform.rotation equals quaternion.Euler angles. Oh my gosh, is there transform.rotate? Is that a thing? Sometimes I do not know what I'm talking about. This is working, except you can see the sprites are not keeping their nice rotation, so it doesn't look quite as nice as it did. I want to test this really quickly, and then conserve this. Sorry if I said that wrong. I will check that. Make sure that my row and stuff is still working. Sweet. All right, cool. Man, how good is Tetris? I know people are talking about like Ocarina of Time. Okay, that's an error. I know people are talking about like Ocarina of Time and The Last of Us being the best games ever, but how good is Tetris? So what happened was, I think, oh, and of course I stopped it. I think the grid didn't fully remove everything. So when we delete a row, grid I row equals null. And then when we decrease the rows above, decrease row, grid I row minus 1 equals. I think I forgot to reset my Y value somewhere because I'm supposed to. This is in the wrong spot. So when we I think that's supposed to be there. Let me double check my notes. No, I do not YouTube full-time. I'm a full-time teacher. I just do this as a hobby. Okay. Where am I at with my notes? Alright, so delete full rows. Oh, it's delete full rows that's supposed to get this. Yep. That's why. What was happening is the positions weren't being reset properly, which is why it looked like there were like phantom things. So now transform.rotate. I never remember where the asterisk is just by feel. Yeah, okay. Apparently I can. Then I wanted to I want to rotate all of the children in the opposite direction. So I want to do for is 0, I is less than blocks dot length. Mr. Fahrenheit says, couldn't you do a debug for the row clear? So yeah, I could. I'm 90% sure that's the problem. If it's not, then I'll do the debug. But yeah, no, I totally could. I dot transform dot rotate 0f negative rotate amount. Cool. Thank you, Contervis. I didn't even think about this. The problem with using the debug, though, I mean, since I'm using it for rows, it's not a big deal. The problem with using the debug is Unity doesn't do a very good job displaying two-dimensional arrays. So, yeah. So, yeah, that transform.rotate is good, and now the pieces look like they're, except that's no good. Hold up here. Group. So this is at 620. 6.2. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, no, because it still gives me the world coordinates, so that should still be fine. Is it the 90.001, I wonder? Well, okay, so let's do that debug thing. For now, I'm just going to be just debugging the I. debug statements I have running right now? I don't think so. No, I do. Awesome. So this. Here. Yep. Nope, I've got that like I want it. Okay, cool, that's the only one. Go back here. Okay, so I'm trying this without rotating. I got another, oh yeah, that debug left over from the very, very beginning when I created the row programmatically instead of using the inspector or the array, There's a few other issues here. I just want to get the simple stuff working first. All right, cool. So what happened here? Let's trace this back. So we changed child. That was when something was activated. And then, yeah, you're right. I'll delete that right now. Where is it? There it is. All right, there we go. Now if I go back here, come on now. There we go. Let's try this again. Mr. Fahrenheit, I'm not using any collision. All the collision is based on the position and the grid. So what it's doing is it's reading the position. What I think might be happening is there's floating point errors with the way I'm rotating it. So I need to round the vector. And I already have a function to do that, and I thought I was doing it, but I must not be. So I'm not rotating at all. I want to make sure first that that delete rows is working like it should. So that I'm only working on one problem at a time. It's hard to do this without wanting to rotate stuff. Almost. This is frustrating. There we go. All right, finally I can clear one row. Okay, so what's the error? Game object has been destroyed, but you're still trying to access it. But let's go back. Okay, so it never got to the debug that I have in the delete full rows. So if I go back here, it's never getting here, which means that it's doing delete row I, and when it deletes the row, it goes through and it destroys every object and sets the grid equal to null. Decrease rows above I plus 1. So now decrease rows above, that's my problem. I need to start at row. because now it's going through the list again and it found something that doesn't exist. That's why. So I'm going to use my cheat again to test this, and I'm going to use just the O group. That way I don't have to worry about rotating. Okay, so gosh, of course I did that. Yep, that was one of the pigeon asks, did you make a function that resets the rows when they're full? That was one of the first helper functions I made. It's just gonna be easier if I just reset this. So to make sure that things are moving down, I'm just going to put something on top, like right there. This will go here. Alright, cool. It worked that time. Alright, so that fixed that issue. Now, the rotation. So I want to round the vector after I rotate it. Take a look at my group here. My rotate function. Let's get rid of these. And then so I want to round it. So I'm gonna go 0f, 0f, math f dot round. I want to round what the current Z rotation is. So I'm going to do Euler angles. Oh no, I do want to do Euler angles dot Z. So this should be transform.Euler, I think. Ernian. Okay. Pigeon says, can you do at the end or whenever you want something like a particle system that activates when a row is destroyed? Katurvis, there's no colliders. They're just sprites. I'm doing all of this space just on their positions. Okay, so I want to do something similar to each of the pieces. Ernian. Euler 0f 0f math f dot round dot Euler angles dot Z. All right, so I think that it's this that's causing the issue. So Pigeon, that's not going to happen today, but I will be streaming again next Friday. No, your point still stands, Katurvis. Since I'm rotating the objects, you're right. So I want to put my this. Okay, so I just want to test the rotation really quickly. So I'm just going to let one piece rotate, and then I'm going to pause it. I want to check on this one. It's still floating point. I wonder, so let's test this. Yeah, see, it thinks that this piece is outside of the grid. Yep. Wait a minute. I'm not sure what's going on now. Everything was working good until I added rotation. So I'm gonna have to take a look at my notes here really quickly. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, Tetris, it's a floating point error. And I think it's that 90-degree rotation. The fact that it's not an integer value. So there has to be I wrote down some notes on this a long time ago, and I'm looking at them right now. Left, move right, rotate. Oh. Okay, so alright, I think I don't need this, but I do need to check to see if it's a valid position, which I wasn't. So if not valid position, then I'm going to rotate the opposite amount. Not rotate. I think this might be what my issue is, but I'm not 100% on that. Here, there we go. Everything saved, everything saved. All right, back into Unity here. Okay, so it's not rotating out of bounds anymore. So now let's see if this is gonna play nicely. Nope. So I wonder. So, all right. So there's a way I can do this with matrices. I don't want to go into the matrix multiplication way though, because I know that I've done this before, just like this, in a simpler way. So right, for now, I'm just gonna leave the rotation out of this. I'm just gonna have it be that. I think that's gonna be it for today. I'm gonna come back to this on Friday of next week. Friday of next week, I'll finish this out, and I'll have a rotation fix, and then I'll also add like, so right now, the way it's working is the pieces are just purely random, but that's not how actual Tetris works. You won't have any situation where you'd get like, this is an L piece, you won't get like 3 L pieces in a row. You won't even, no, you can get 2, but there's nothing will happen that'll give you 3 in a row, because they have like a bag that they draw the pieces from. So you get each piece once before you see another piece again. So you could have 2 pieces back to back, but you'll never have them 3 in a row. So we'll do that. We'll do what Pigeon suggests, and we'll add like a particle system. We'll make this a bit more, have more weight to it, so it's not just disappearing and then falling. You can add sounds, do a few other things, and all of that stuff I think I can probably do in... Thanks. All of that stuff I think I can do in one stream. So that'll be next Friday, and it'll be the same time. And yeah. Thanks very much, guys. I will leave this up on my channel as an archive. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the comments. Yeah, everybody have yourselves a great day. Thanks, Pigeon. I'm glad you joined.